Welcome to MarketWise Live, the real estate edition, the podcast that gives you the hard facts behind what's going on in real estate. Realtor Mike Freeman, a Coldwell Banker realtor who holds an MBA in finance, draws from his financial background and his deep network to bring the most value for anyone looking to buy, sell, rent, or invest. And welcome back to MarketWise Live, the real estate edition with Mike Freeman. Mike Freeman is back in the house, of course. Let's properly give him the fanfare he deserves.
Thank you.
And terrific episode last time from the perspective of the buyers. Today we're going to talk about sellers. But I guess before we do that, Mike, how are you? How's everything?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you?
Hopefully by the time this runs, we'll be really talking about baseball and enjoying it. By the way, just as a super quick aside, are you enjoying this World Baseball Classic or no?
I actually have not been watching it.
Me neither, really.
No.
I wish I was into it.
Yeah.
Some people are apparently super into it, but it's just maybe it's because we're old-fashioned. We grew up with, baseball. It's an American thing, and I want the USA to win, I guess, but. I mean, if Aaron Judge of the New York Yankees gets a winning home run, I feel like I can only get so excited.
Yeah, you can only get so excited. Like, my son is really into it, so there's a generational thing. But, I mean, I'm more into the Celtics right now, which we can talk about another time. But that's what I'm focused on.
Might require a whole episode. But, yes, they're looking pretty decent.
Yeah.
Anyway, episode today, we'll be talking about the landscape from the seller's point of view. So we talked about in the last episode that, of course, inventory is lean. You would think this would really favor the sellers in a situation like this. Is that the case? And in a market like this, can a seller be kind of greedy and set the price on the high side?
So I'm glad you asked that, because that is like the number one issue that I deal with when I meet with sellers and they agree to work with me. They feel like they can print money. They feel like in this economy and in this current real estate market, yes, it's a seller's market, but sometimes people take it to the extent that, well, I can just ask for any amount and someone will pay for it. Well, it doesn't work that way. And you still see plenty of instances where a house sits on the market for a really long time, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4 price reductions. If a house is priced too high, nobody's going to buy it. It doesn't matter that we're in a low inventory market. And there are countless examples of that in every single town. But those are not the ones that people talk about when they're out with their friends at dinner or at a cocktail party. What the ones that people talk about are, I got an offer in 3 days, Dave. It was unbelievable. It's $50,000. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, Dave, you're not going to believe it. I've had it on the market for 90 days. I've had 5. It's just not how it works.
Yeah.
But trust me, from looking at it, there are a lot of examples of that. So I try to educate sellers that you shouldn't be too greedy. My philosophy is price to sell. And if the market value is higher, if somebody values it higher, it'll go for above ask. But, don't be greedy and say, well, maybe somebody will do it.
So there's, on the few occasions when I've bought and sold homes in my life, I think I've experienced both. One where you put the house on the market and you get like 3 offers, or if the other side, I'm the buyer and I'm putting down an offer and 2 other people did as well. And then there are ones where you sit there and you wait and you get the statue of St. Joseph and you bury it in the back of your house and you pray and you're like, come on, somebody buy my house. So if you're the seller and you get a couple offers that first day, there are some, I think, pessimists who might say, well, I must have priced it too low because, look, I got these 2 offers right on the nose right off the bat. But you're saying not so much, not necessarily.
No, I mean, if that's the case, a lot of times sellers say, well, it's only been a week and I think it's worth more. I got these 2 offers that are asked. I'm going to let them go because I think I'm going to get more. Well, 90% of the time it doesn't happen. Your first offer is usually your best offer.
Yeah.
Or in this example that you gave, 2. So if it's worth more, it's going to go for more.
And people know that at least at some point you were willing to take that amount. Well, or at least you set that amount.
You
right?
set that amount.
Right.
Yeah, they don't necessarily know you got an offer. Although, your agent will likely, what your agent will say is that the seller got some offers and they weren't satisfactory, so they decided to move on. And that does signal to the buyer's agent that they were either too low, or it could be either. It could be that the seller's expectations are too high and they got greedy, or it could be that they just got offers for 50,000 below ask and said no way.
Mm-hmm. In the last episode, we talked about, you gave a lot of good tips for buyers, just a whole assorted bunch of good nuggets. On the seller side, what are some things a seller should do aside from pricing? Things that they should do to maximize the value of their home, and hopefully things that aren't going to cost a fortune to redo the whole living room or something. Or
that's
kitchen.
Yeah, that's the key, is don't spend too much. And what I tell people is, people are like, well, I think I should redo my kitchen and put in granite or quartz and put in a huge island, or I should redo my bathrooms. You could do all those things, and are you going to get more money for your house? Yes, but at what cost? And those things take a long time, and they're very expensive. And then at the end, the buyer may have completely different tastes, right?
And so you just furnished a kitchen that no one's going to use,
and then you're not going to get what it's worth. You most likely are not going to get 100% of your investment back. Now, can we prove it? No, but from experience, you're not going to quite get 100% back. So I always say to people, I don't like spending your money. If you're going to do things like that, then you should enjoy them. You should stay in the house for a little while and at least enjoy it, rather than do it for somebody else. So the things that you should do are what I refer to as cosmetic. Maybe there's a room or two that has wallpaper, and you peel that wallpaper and you paint it a neutral color. Not a big expense. Maybe it's a case of you have an old carpet covering a beautiful hardwood floor that hasn't seen the light of day in 50 years. Pull the carpet. That's pretty cheap. Maybe there are some minor repairs you need. So I had this when I sold my house. There were some minor repairs we needed on the wood just below the roof. Like, you'd look up at it and you can see it was a little rotted. So, not rotted, but it just didn't look good. So we painted over and made it look nice. So if you can do some minor cosmetic things that don't cost you a lot of money, you can definitely get more than 100% of your investment, because it's the curb appeal. And it's also the buyers come in, and one of the biggest things that buyers think about that sellers need to realize is that the phrase pride of ownership is huge. So if a buyer comes in and they say, oh, that looks like it's rotted, and they got wallpaper and it's not in good shape. If there's little things that aren't in great shape, then the buyer gets these little ideas, and it's like a bee buzzing around, right? And so even if it's not even conscious, even if it's just subconscious, they're thinking, well, this house isn't as nice as some others that I've seen. So it's, when you walk in a house and you can say, wow, this person, you can tell, has really taken care of it. You can tell there's the pride of ownership. And a lot of times you may not know it, but then the inspector comes in and they highlight some things that you as a non-inspector aren't going to know, but they'll point this out and they'll say, look, like when I look at the siding of a house, the house has vinyl siding, there are always multiple dents in the siding. Not a big deal. This house has none. That's never happened. This shows that this person really cares about the house, and they probably were, and they took care of them. So it's things like that. If you can make your house look more appealing by not spending a lot of money and doing some of these cosmetic things, that's the best option for you as a seller.
It's almost akin to when you're having company over, right? If you're having people over your place, I do this. I'm having people over. You want to clean up and put as much as I ever really clean up, but sometimes it's more obvious things like, I go out, come back in and look and see where your eyes go. Like, your eyes might go to, you might be like, it looks nice, but what's that big pile of newspapers doing there? Like
Right.
that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. Or that couch has a stain on it. You know, that's the first thing I'm looking at.
Right.
Get a nice decorative blanket and put it over that stain.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's as simple as that. Right?
No, it's true. And buyers sometimes can't get past those things, even though that couch or that chair, that's not going to be there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But another thing you just made me realize is that, in addition to, in addition to addressing some of these minor things, the cosmetics. One of the first things that I do with a seller is I have my home stager. So Nancy Safran, you'll remember, she was a guest.
Yeah.
She was one of my first guests on this podcast. So I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not as strong at. And that I always say I'm not the realtor who's going to help you figure out where to put the flowers. So I have a home.
So you have something for that, yeah.
Yeah. So I have an expert in the areas that aren't my top strengths, and Nancy will come in, and she'll do a consultation. It's very detailed. And you get a very detailed report, and you go room by room, and then that's where I'll help you and decide what really is in your budget and what really is worth it, and what really isn't. But it's always within that person's budget, and you don't have to spend a fortune on renting furniture. And like when people think about staging, that's what they think about. Oh, I have to spend thousands of dollars on renting furniture. Well, no, it could be minor things like you go out to Target and you get certain types of curtains. You know, like she'll recommend things like that maybe aren't going to be huge money makers for her, but she knows what's going to sell a house. So a home stager knows, and if you leverage them, it's really short dollars to do a consultation. Or in this case, what I'll offer to people is, if you're hearing this podcast and you hear this part, I will pay for 100% of your consultation.
Wow.
And it's good savings.
Sure.
But that's one of the first things you should do to find out how you can maximize every single room, and then you decide what you want to do and what you don't want to do.
Do people still bake cookies before the people come in for an open house?
Some people do, but I don't, and that's actually for the benefit of my customers. They don't want me to bake anything. I mean, it's just going to hurt, not help.
I read once that if you just take like a tablespoon of vanilla extract, and you put it in the stove, just don't forget it's in there, because I've burned it before. Then it has the opposite effect, but it can make the place smell pretty nice.
Yep, there's that, and then there's playing nice music, which I do sometimes. So I should probably do a little bit more of focus on, maybe bringing in cookies that somebody else may.
Well, yeah.
I should probably do those things.
Actual cookies.
A little bit more. Yeah.
Jeez, never thought of that. You're playing Metallica in the background, right? That's where you're playing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Metallica, AC/DC, like anything Beavis and Butthead would have listened to. Yeah, that really sells a house.
It is true, though. If you're ever at somebody's house, like for whether it's a cocktail party, a small gathering, the music makes a huge difference. You walk into someone's house and you hear Vivaldi, and you think, classic joint here. Yeah,
that's what you do. You play some nice classical music.
Yeah. Right. Let's talk about timing the market, because I'm sure every seller goes through this analysis. Is there a good time? Should they watch the like what the rest of the real estate inventory is like before they put it on the market? What's the thinking about that these days?
So that is a fantastic question. That's better than your first question. That was pretty good, Dave. Now, the reason why this is such a good question is that one of the things, I talked in the last episode about how education is a big part of what I do. The truth is that all markets are supply and demand, and there is no such thing as a good time of year or a bad time of year. It's just like the stock market. As you know, people used to talk about the January effect, and stocks go up in January. Well, it doesn't happen all the time.
No, you can't time it.
You can't time the market, and the same thing applies to real estate. So there's only one thing we know in real estate. The only thing we know is that there's going to be more inventory in the spring. Now, maybe that doesn't apply in Florida, but here. So people think I'm going to wait until the spring, because it's a nicer time of year. They think there are going to be more buyers, which isn't true, because buyers aren't bears. They don't hibernate in the winter. They're out. And so they wait, and then they put it on the market in the spring. And what happens? Everybody else does. So it's supply and demand. So what are you doing? You're putting your house in the market at the worst possible time, because there's more supply and demand stays the same. So now you have more competition. That's where people start to understand it if I explain it that way. Supply and demand sometimes goes over people's heads. But if I say you have more competition than if you put your house on the market in, say, January, then it starts to click and they start to understand it. So, yes, when there's snow on the ground and it's cold, your house doesn't look as nice as it's going to in April or May when the flowers are blooming, and if you have a pool, if that's open. Yes, that's true. But I've sold houses that have pools for a lot of money above ask, and it's the winter and the pool's closed. So it's there's really no good time of year. A lot of people think that in a town like Sharon, you want to get it in the market in the spring, not only for the reasons I just said, but because people want to get their kids in the school system before the fall. What if they don't have kids? Not everybody has kids.
That's right.
It only takes one buyer. There's only going to be one buyer of your house.
Right.
And you don't know who they're going to be. You don't know what their background is. You don't know whether it's going to be a young family or people downsizing. So I say to people ad nauseum, don't worry about the time of year. Go by what's going on in your life and what's good for you. That's really what it is. Because if it was as easy as putting your house in the market in the spring and you get more money then, I'd be a lot wealthier than I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast right now. I'd probably be retired.
Right.
It's just not that simple.
Right. Excellent points. I hadn't really thought of that, but yes, you do only get one buyer, and it's one is all it takes, and you don't know who that person is going to be, what their situation is going to be like, how motivated they're going to be. So why try the guesswork? Anything else you want to, as we before we move on, tips for sellers in this climate?
So one other thing I would say that sellers need to think about is think about it from the buyer's perspective. If inventory goes, like let's say you asked me earlier how many are on the market in Sharon, it's 20-something. Let's say we're sitting here 2 months from now, it's mid-May, and there's 40-something. Well, do you think a buyer is going to look at that and look at whatever their price range is and see more competition, be willing to pay more or less? They're going to probably pay a little bit less. When there's two houses on the market that meet their interests, their specifications, then they might panic and say, oh my God, we better pay $50,000 above ask. But when there's 10, it doesn't work that way. So that's why as a seller, you can't time the market, and you need to think about that you want to put your house in the market when there's less competition, not more. So I think that sometimes sellers think that they can sell their house on their own and save the realtor's commission. And the bottom line is, and this applies to buyers as well, you want representation. You wouldn't go to court. Well, some people do this. You could go to court and go against an attorney and represent yourself. Well, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to get your clock cleaned. And so the same thing applies in real estate. You want representation. You want somebody who does this every single day and knows all the ins and outs of either getting your offer accepted if you're a buyer or how to sell your house if you're a seller. So I think that is another thing that both sellers and buyers make that mistake. They think if I don't hire a realtor, I'm smart, I know what I'm doing, how hard can it be? I'm going to save a fortune. Well, it actually is hard, and there's so many things in life that you wouldn't do yourself, and this should be one of them.
Excellent points as usual.
Thank you.
Make sure to check back for these channels. Actually, what I mean to say is, if this is terrific advice for sellers, if you happen to be a buyer, make sure you check our last episode, which posted 2 weeks ago, and all the episodes in this feed. But for now, if it's all right with you, Mike, I think people want to know more about you, more about Mike.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do that.
More about Mike.
More about Mike.
More about Mike.
For the answer as to what Mike's dumbest injury was in his life, go back 2 weeks ago. I don't know if we're going to top that one. That was a winner.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Well, you got to share with your listeners, and you did it very well. But let's spin the wheel and see what the question is going to be in this episode for more about Mike. And this is another good question. What is a talent that you have that absolutely no one cares about? Or I guess to be more accurate, no one else cares about. Perhaps you care about it. But
I care about it.
Yeah.
So I think that I would be an outstanding race car driver. Okay. Nobody really
This is a
cares.
great one.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
you know, my former wife would be the first one to say, you would not be an excellent race car driver. Why do you think that? Because you're good at go-kart racing? And
Right.
I said, well, that's part of it. Like, you know, I'm good at running people off the road. One guy once saw his life flash before his eye. But, yeah, I mean, nobody passes me. There you go.
There's Mike right now out there. Okay, so you're talking about that F1 deluxe go-kart racing that they have in Braintree. You're talking about that, or other outdoor go-karts?
Really, the outdoor. So
Okay.
I think I have the reflexes. And, you know, it's like this is all in my head, right?
Right.
Like I just think that I have the reflexes, and yeah, I just think I'd be really good at it. It's hard to explain.
No, I can't doubt it. I can't prove you wrong. So, it's the type of thing that you'll never know, probably, right?
Yeah, I'll
Although
never know.
I'm told I'm with some college friends. I'm going on a trip to Austin in a couple months, and one of the guys wants to go. I guess there's a Porsche thing there where you can go drive the souped up Porsches around a racetrack.
Wow.
I'm scared. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I don't know, but like the go-karts, it's pretty low risk, you know. I mean, you know, and you can try little maneuvers and stuff. But I'll say this: just because you think you get your instincts from go-kart racing, I've seen a couple of documentaries about like the top race car drivers in the world, and when they're kids, I mean, you're not a kid anymore, but when they're kids, they start.
Yeah.
They go, all I'm saying is that the skills, I think, are translatable.
You can extrapolate.
Right, sure.
That's what I do.
Sure. I was trying to think of a talent I have that no one cares about. I'm not so sure I have. I mean, I can juggle, but that not very well. I think my talent is probably I remember random stuff about people, and they say, well, how do you possibly remember that? And so as I'm sitting here, I'm like, what can I tell you that I remember about you?
Scary.
Completely random compliment you paid me once. You might remember this. It was a basketball tournament. It was a father-son basketball tournament, youth basketball.
Okay.
Mike and I have sons the same age. And I think I played against you in that tournament, but at some point I was playing defense. So it was a while ago, but I was still in probably my late 40s. And I'm trying to play defense against this kid. This was not father-son. This was like older brother, son, one of the teams.
Oh, I remember this.
And he was like 17, 18, and he was pretty good. And he was backing me down. And I'm just trying to play my fundamental defense that I was taught by Coach Rugby, you know, many years ago in high school. And I sort of stood my ground, and it sort of worked. And I remember I heard your voice. You said, "Nice D, yes, nice D," and that kind of got me charged up. I'm like, somebody noticed that I'm actually really trying in this stupid father-son. So that's my talent.
That's your skill.
That's my skill.
That makes sense. I don't remember specifically saying that, but it makes sense that I would admire that because I'm not a very good shooter, but that's something I can do, what you just described. So it makes sense that I see someone else doing it and appreciate it.
It's what my high school basketball coach used to say is defense never goes on vacation. You can have a bad shooting day.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can have you should never have a bad defense day.
Because it's effort.
It's effort, right. And the effort that was put into this podcast, you're welcome, everyone. But I hope you enjoyed another edition of the show. Let's remind people, Mike, where people can find out more about you and your real estate practice.
Sure. So you can call me anytime, 617-759-1513. My email is mike.freeman@anymoves.com. And you can check out my website, mikefreemanhomes.com. And of course, and I know Dave has this in the background.
Check it out. Now we got logos all over the place, which is great.
Search it on YouTube and you'll find my outstanding YouTube channel with all of these podcasts.
If you're not watching it, you must be the only one because the numbers are sky high. But please do check out the podcast on YouTube, both the show in principle and the shorts. If you are an audio podcast person, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you find your pods. And thanks once again for listening to MarketWise Live, the Real Estate Edition.